There's a special arrogance to designing the building where you seduce underage girls, hanging a red velvet swing from the ceiling of your secret apartment, and assuming your wealth and reputation will forever protect you from consequences. When you're America's most famous architect, when you've designed Madison Square Garden and the Washington Square Arch, when Astors and Vanderbilts beg you to build their mansions, you might believe yourself untouchable. Stanford White spent decades collecting beautiful young women the way he collected European antiques displayed for his pleasure. Discarded when he tired of them, they're suffering merely unfortunate collateral in his pursuit of aesthetic perfection. But on June 25, 1906, during a rooftop theater performance in the very building he'd designed, a cocaine-addicted millionaire walked up to White's table and shot him 3 times in the face in front of hundreds of witnesses. The killer's motive: defending his wife's honor 3 years too late. In today's episode of Old Money Thrown, we expose how America's most celebrated architect drugged and raped a 16-year-old girl on a red velvet swing, how she married an even more violent predator who beat her with dog whips, and how the subsequent trial became the nation's first media circus. Introducing concepts like brainstorms and sequestered juries while newspapers sold millions of copies, describing every lurid detail, proving that sometimes justice arrives not through law, but through the bullet of a different monster who happens to share your victim. Before we go further, please mention in the comment section where you're listening from and what brings you here. November 9, 1853. New York City, Stanford White entered the world already connected to advantage. His father, Richard Grant White, earned reputation as Shakespearean scholar and music critic. No immense fortune, but social capital that opened doors. The White family moved comfortably among New York's artistic elite: landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, painter John Lafarge, designer Louis Comfort Tiffany. Young Stanford absorbed culture like osmosis. Developing the aesthetic sensibility that would define his career, he never attended college, never received formal architectural training at 18. He joined architect Henry Hobson Richardson's office, just as Richardson began designing Boston's Trinity Church, learning by doing the Richardsonian Romanesque style. Massive stone structures with rounded arches impressed itself on White's early work. 1878, White departed for Europe. Spending 18 months studying architecture firsthand, he sketched buildings, collected antiques, absorbed the Renaissance aesthetic that would dominate American architecture for the next 3 decades. Upon returning to New York in September 1879, he partnered with Charles Follen McKim and William Rutherford Mead to form McKim, Mead and White. The 3 agreed to credit all designs collectively rather than individually, though each possessed distinct specialties. McKim brought classical training from the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. Mead provided steady management. White delivered flamboyant creativity and insatiable appetite for ornamentation. The firm exploded. Within 5 years, they'd become America's preeminent architectural practice. White designed the casino at Newport, Rhode Island in 1881, subtle shingle-style structure that announced his arrival, but as the firm's reputation grew, White shifted from informal coastal homes to grand Beaux-Arts monuments. The Boston Public Library in 1887, Columbia University's library in 1893, the University Club in 1899, the Morgan Library, and in 1891, his crowning achievement, Madison Square Garden. The second Madison Square Garden rose at Madison Avenue and 26th Street. Replacing P.T. Barnum's former railroad depot, White designed a Moorish revival palace crowned with a tower modeled on Seville's Giralda. The building housed arena space, theater, restaurant, and concert hall at the tower's top. White created something else entirely. His private apartment. This space became legendary. Furnished with European antiques, decorated with mirrors, featuring hidden alcoves and secret rooms, and suspended from the ceiling of one green velvet room, a red velvet swing, adorned with ivy positioned perfectly so that when a young girl swung high enough, her feet would tear through a paper Japanese umbrella hanging nearby. White would dash through the Mead and White offices wearing translucent silk shirts in pale blue and green, some with bold mauve and white stripes billowing as he moved. Employees approached the swinging door. Cautiously, Stanford was likely to plunge through at incredible speed, pounding on drafting tables, snatching drawings, yelling, "This looks like hell," or "Swell, isn't it?" His energy was manic, his standards impossibly high, his personal life utterly unmanageable. 1884, White married Bessie Springs Smith, 22 years old, daughter of a socially prominent Long Island family descended from colonial settlers. They bought Box Hill Estate, transforming it into both home and showplace for the luxurious design aesthetic White offered wealthy clients. Their son, Lawrence Grant White, arrived in 1887. The marriage appeared stable. It wasn't. White maintained what biographers politely call an appetite for young girls, Mark Twain, who knew White socially, described him as eagerly and diligently and ravenously and remorselessly hunting young girls to their destruction, adding that these facts have been well known in New York for many years. But knowing and acting are different. White's wealth, reputation, and social connections created protective buffer. Nobody confronted America's foremost architect about his predation. Nobody stopped him. December 25, 1884. Tarentum, Pennsylvania. Florence Evelyn Nesbit entered the world on Christmas Day. Her father died when she was young, leaving the family destitute. At 14, Evelyn began modeling in Philadelphia to support her mother and younger brother. She possessed otherworldly beauty, delicate features, enormous eyes, flowing dark hair. Artists immediately recognized her potential. By 1900, at age 15, Evelyn and her mother moved to New York City. Within months, Evelyn became sensation. She appeared on magazine covers, in advertisements, in artworks. Charles Dana Gibson idealized her as a Gibson girl, the era's beauty standard. She posed for James Carroll Beckwith, Frederick S. Church, countless photographers. Her face sold everything from soap to calendars. Evelyn's fame led to Broadway. She joined the chorus line of Florodora, the era's hit musical. 16 years old, performing nightly, living in modest circumstances with her protective but naive mother. 1,947-year-old Stanford White attended Florodora and noticed Evelyn. He made inquiries, arranged introduction through another chorus girl, Edna Goodrich. The setup appeared innocent. Society luncheon at a posh venue instead. Goodrich brought Evelyn to White's West 24th Street apartment entrance, conveniently located next to the back delivery entrance of FAO Schwartz toy store. Only 4 people present: White, Evelyn, Edna, and another gentleman named Reginald Ronalds. The luncheon was extravagant afterward. White led the girls upstairs 2 more flights, into a green room illuminated by concealed lighting, and there it hung, the red velvet swing, adorned with trailing ivy. "Let's put this little kid in the swing," White suggested. Evelyn jumped on enthusiastically. White pushed, higher, higher, until Evelyn's feet tore through the Japanese umbrella suspended from the ceiling. Everyone laughed. What harmless fun, what innocent entertainment. White deployed classic grooming tactics. He befriended Evelyn's mother, presenting himself as avuncular benefactor. He provided allowance, paid their bills, moved them from rooming house to hotel. He arranged music lessons, brought books for Evelyn to read, helped her Broadway career. Mrs. Nesbit believed such a prominent man taking interest in her daughter's well-being represented remarkable good fortune. When White suggested Mrs. Nesbit visit friends and relatives in Pittsburgh, give the poor woman a break, she agreed gratefully. Leaving 16-year-old Evelyn in White's care, one evening shortly thereafter, White invited Evelyn to dinner at his apartment. Champagne appeared. Evelyn later testified, "He insisted I drink this glass of champagne, which I did. It was bitter and funny, and I don't know whether it was a minute after or 2 minutes after, but a pounding began in my ears. A pounding and pounding." Her next memory: waking naked in White's bed, blood on the sheets, her virginity gone, White beside her, also naked. 47 years old, she was 16. Evelyn's reaction reveals the confusion typical of grooming victims. She couldn't immediately process what happened. White had been kind, generous, helpful. This must be normal. This must be what relationships with important men entail. She returned to him. For 6 months they maintained sexual relationship. White gave her pearl necklace, 3 diamond rings, white fox furs for her 17th birthday in December 1901. Sometimes she swung on the red velvet swing clothed, sometimes not. Decades later, in her memoirs, Evelyn wrote, "Stanford White was a great man, ... that he did me wrong. That from certain moral standards he was perverse and decadent, does not blind my judgment." The cognitive dissonance of victims trying to reconcile affection for their abuser with recognition of harm done. By late 1902, White's interest faded. Evelyn discovered he kept a little black book recording names of other female minors he'd pursued. She was one among many, replaceable, disposable. White sent her to boarding school in New Jersey at age 17, removing the problem while maintaining veneer of benevolence. 1902, enter John Barrymore. The future legendary actor, then 21, noticed Evelyn at one of White's parties in his Madison Square Garden tower apartment. They began brief relationship, but another suitor proved more persistent. Harry Kendall Thaw. August 12, 1871, Pittsburgh. Harry Thaw was born into $40 million fortune built by his father William Thaw through coal and railroad holdings. The inheritance came with catastrophic mental instability. Harry was expelled from multiple preparatory schools. Expelled from Harvard University in February 1892. Expelled from everywhere. His behavior oscillated between lavish spending and explosive violence. He became addicted to cocaine and morphine, often mixing both drugs into single injection. He reportedly drank entire bottles of laudanum in one swallow. He carried special silver cases containing hypodermic syringes and outfits for injecting. Thaw's violence toward women was well known among New York society. He beat prostitutes with dog whips. He had a reputation for sexual sadism. Multiple women reported his abuse, but his $40 million inheritance insulated him from consequences. Money purchased silence. Money bought new victims. Thaw attended the Wild Rose repeatedly. Obsessing over Evelyn Nesbit's performance, he sent gifts, pursued relentlessly. Evelyn initially refused his advances. She understood his reputation. But Thaw persisted. In 1903, he convinced Evelyn and her mother to travel Europe with him. During this trip, the violence emerged. They stayed at Katzenstein Castle in Austria-Pola. Uriburu describes it in her biography American Eve as a huge, gothic nightmare of cold stones and dimly lit, drafty passageways, grimmer than anything in the Grimm brothers' tales. One night, Evelyn woke to find Thaw standing naked beside her bed, bug-eyed and seething. He tore her coverings away and began lashing her legs with leather riding crop. Blood. Screaming, he ripped her nightgown off and raped her, shrieking the entire time about Stanford White's debauchery. For 2 weeks, Thaw kept Evelyn locked in the castle, beating and raping her repeatedly. You would think, after such nightmare, marriage would be impossible. Yet Evelyn eventually agreed. 2 years of non-stop pursuit, lavish spending, attention to her mother, and the grim calculation that no respectable man would want her after White's rape and Thaw's public obsession. Her reputation was destroyed. Thaw represented her best option for financial security. They married April 4, 1905. The marriage was predictably catastrophic. Thaw's obsession with Stanford White intensified. He demanded every detail of Evelyn's relationship with the architect. Morbid hunger for information about her violation, he would ask repeatedly about the champagne. The swing, the blood, the questioning never stopped. And his drug use accelerated cocaine and morphine in massive quantities. His paranoia grew. His violence continued. June 25, 1906, 10:50 p.m. Harry and Evelyn Thaw attended the premiere of Mamselle Champagne at Madison Square Garden's Rooftop Theater, the venue designed by Stanford White. The killer attending performance in the building created by his target, Evelyn wore elegant dress. Harry wore evening clothes and concealed weapon. Stanford White sat at table near the stage with his son Lawrence and another companion. He'd seen the show before. He wasn't paying close attention. The finale approached. I Could Love a Million Girls playing as chorus performed. Harry Thaw rose from his seat, walked deliberately toward White's table. Nobody noticed initially. Wealthy men moved through the theater regularly. Thaw stopped directly beside White, drew revolver, aimed at White's face. Fired 3 times, point blank. The first bullet entered White's left eye. The second struck his right eye. The third tore through his shoulder. White collapsed onto the table, then slid to the floor, dead. 47 years of architectural genius and sexual predation terminated in seconds. For a moment, the audience thought it was part of the show. Then, screaming, panicked Thaw stood over White's corpse. Gun still smoking, he raised his hands. Showing the weapon, he deserved it, Thaw announced. He ruined my wife, Evelyn, who'd been in the ladies' room during the shooting. Returned to find chaos. What happened? She asked. It's all right, Harry replied. I probably saved your life. Thaw surrendered immediately. Police arrested him without struggle. The next day, newspapers exploded. Mad millionaire shoots architect in theater, screamed headlines. Husband avenges wife's honor. The story had everything: wealth, fame, sex, violence, a beautiful woman at the center. Circulation soared to unprecedented levels. William Randolph Hearst couldn't have scripted better sensationalism. January 23, 1907, Harry Thaw's trial began. District Attorney William Travers Jerome prosecuted personally, Delphin M. Delma's lead defense. The courtroom packed beyond capacity. Judge James Fitzgerald ordered the first sequestered jury in American history, 12 men locked away from newspapers and public to prevent contamination. The concept was revolutionary. The trial lasted until April 12. Weeks of testimony. The defense strategy: temporary insanity. Dementia Americana, a uniquely American form of madness, where a man becomes temporarily insane when defending a woman's honor. The concept was absurd. Also, brilliant. Delmas understood the jury needed justification for acquittal. He provided it. Thaw wasn't a cold-blooded murderer. He was noble protector driven temporarily mad by learning of his wife's defilement. To sell this fiction, Evelyn Nesbit Thaw had to testify, had to describe her rape in graphic detail, had to make the jury hate Stanford White more than they distrusted Harry Thaw. Evelyn took the stand wearing navy blue tailored suit, shirtwaist with boyish collar, black velvet hat trimmed with violets. She looked younger than her 22 years. Schoolgirl innocence, she described meeting White. The luncheon, the swing, the champagne that tasted bitter and funny, the pounding in her ears, waking naked with blood on sheets. Her voice broke describing the blood. The courtroom sat riveted. Theodore Roosevelt himself called on newspapers not to print her testimony verbatim too explicit for public consumption. They printed it anyway, circulation doubled. The trial became national obsession. Evelyn's beauty, her victimization, her performance on the witness stand, she became America's first sex symbol and first victim simultaneously. The girl in the red velvet swing newspapers dubbed her. The nickname stuck. Prosecutor Jerome fought back. Will you acquit a cold-blooded, deliberate, cowardly murderer because his lying wife has a pretty girl's face? He called psychiatrists who testified about Thaw's drug addiction, his history of violence, his paranoid delusions. He showed that Thaw waited 3 years after marrying Evelyn before killing White, hardly the act of man in temporary insanity. If he'd shot White immediately upon learning of the rape, temporary insanity might apply. 3 years of planning premeditated murder. April 12, 1907, after 47 hours of deliberation, the jury deadlocked. 7 voted guilty of first-degree murder. 5 voted not guilty by reason of insanity. Judge Fitzgerald declared mistrial. Harry Thaw would be tried again. January 6, 1908, the second trial began. New lawyer, Martin W. Littleton. New strategy, focus entirely on inherited insanity. Littleton produced evidence showing mental illness ran through Thaw's family. Evelyn testified again, repeating her performance. This time, neither prosecution nor defense fought as hard. Perhaps both sides recognized that not guilty by reason of insanity was the best available outcome, though. Avoids execution. Prosecution avoids appearing to defend a child rapist. February 1, 1908, after less than 4 weeks, the jury returned verdict. Not guilty by reason of insanity. Judge Victor J. Dowling immediately committed Thaw to Massachusetts State Hospital for the criminally insane in New York. But Thaw's wealth bought privileges, private room, special accommodations, nearly complete freedom within the facility. In July 1913, he simply walked out and drove to Quebec. Canada extradited him. More trials. More psychiatric evaluations. In 1915, he was finally released as sane. That same year, Evelyn divorced him. She'd testified at both trials. Expecting the $1 million Mrs. Thaw promised, she received nothing. The Thaw family reneged immediately. 1917, Harry Thaw kidnapped and horsewhipped 19-year-old Frederick Gump nearly to death. Arrested, adjudicated, insane again. Sent back to asylum, 7 more years. Released 1924. He purchased historic home in Virginia, joined the fire company, marched in parades wearing fireman's uniform. Locals considered him eccentric but harmless. In the late 1920s, he entered film production on Long Island, attempting short comedies. February 22, 1947. Harry Kendall Thaw died in Miami of coronary thrombosis, age 75. He never expressed remorse. When asked years after the murder if he'd do it again, Thaw replied, "Under the same circumstances, I'd kill him tomorrow." He lived 41 years longer than the man he murdered, died wealthy, died comfortable, died unpunished beyond 7 years in comfortable asylum accommodations. Evelyn Nesbit's life proved harder. She attempted to capitalize on notoriety through vaudeville tours and silent films. Published 2 memoirs, *He, Story of My Life in 1914, and Prodigal Days in 1934. In 1926, she attempted suicide. Drug addiction consumed her. In 1955, she served as technical advisor on the film The Girl in the Red Velvet Swing starring Joan Collins. Receiving $10,000, she collapsed from exhaustion during production. Suffered stroke in 1956, January 17, 1967. Evelyn Nesbit died in nursing home in Santa Monica, California, age 82, buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. Her grandson, Russell Thaw, became lawyer. Her granddaughter lives in Israel. The family spent generations trying to distance themselves from scandal. Modern descendants are more accepting. Eager to understand their family history, Stanford White's legacy fractured. His architectural achievements remain undeniable. Pennsylvania Station demolished in 1963. Triggering the modern preservation movement, the Washington Square Arch still marks the entrance to Greenwich Village. The buildings at Columbia University, the Boston Public Library, countless mansions for Astors and Vanderbilts, Mead and White designed more influential American buildings than any firm except Frank Lloyd Wright's studio. But White's personal depravity taints every achievement. His great-granddaughter later acknowledged that Stanford's eldest son was unflinching in his awareness of Stanford's nature. The family knew. They knew about the Little Black Book. the red velvet swing, the pattern of assault. They knew and did nothing. The trial transformed American media. Sequestered juries became standard in high-profile cases. The concept of temporary insanity, dementia americana entered legal vocabulary, used successfully to acquit Congressman Daniel Sickles in 1859 for murdering his wife's lover, but the Thaw trial popularized it. Newspapers discovered that sex scandals involving wealthy defendants sold exponentially more copies than traditional reporting. The trial established template for modern media circuses. Celebrity defendant, beautiful victim, salacious details, public fascination that overrides substantive coverage of actual issues. What was never discussed adequately? White's systematic predation. The little black book full of names. How many other 16-year-olds brought to the apartment? Given champagne that tasted bitter, woke, bleeding in his bed. The trial focused on Evelyn because she became Mrs. Thaw. But White's pattern suggests dozens of victims, and his wealth, reputation, and social connections protected him completely until a different wealthy man decided vengeance trumped social cohesion. Harry Thaw was monster cocaine-addicted sadist who beat women with dog whips, but he killed another monster. Stanford White drugged and raped children. Both men were predators. Both escaped meaningful consequences. White died instantly. Painless compared to Evelyn's suffering, Thaw lived comfortably in asylums and homes. Never facing real justice, Evelyn Nesbit was destroyed. 16 years old when White raped her, 17 when White abandoned her, 21 when Thaw raped her in Austrian castle, 23 when Thaw murdered White, 22 when forced to describe her assault in courtroom packed with hundreds of men. Her beauty made her famous. Her victimization made her notorious. She never escaped either. The red velvet swing became cultural symbol. The 1955 film starring Joan Collins, E.L. Doctorow's novel Ragtime in the 1970s, the 1981 film adaptation, the 1990s stage musical, each generation rediscovering the scandal, romanticizing the tragedy. Missing the essential horror, two wealthy men destroyed a young woman and faced no consequences. One died quickly, one lived comfortably. She suffered for 82 years. Modern viewers of The Gilded Age on HBO see Stanford White portrayed sympathetically brilliant architect, champion of American Renaissance style. The show acknowledges his dalliances but sanitizes the predation. Mark Twain's assessment was more accurate, eagerly and diligently and ravenously and remorselessly hunting young girls to their destruction, and these facts were well known in New York for many years, known and ignored. Because wealth and genius apparently excuse rape, because powerful men protect their own. Until one of their own decides protection no longer serves his interests. June 25, 1906, Madison Square Garden, Rooftop Theater. The finale of Mam'zelle Champagne, Stanford White, architect of the building where he was murdered, slumps dead at his table. Harry Thaw stands over him with smoking gun. Evelyn Nesbit returns from the ladies' room to find her past and present colliding in violence. 3 bullets in the face. A 47-year-old predator dead. A 35-year-old sadist claiming chivalry. A 21-year-old victim who would spend the rest of her life defined by men who destroyed her. America called it the trial of the century. They meant sensational, scandalous, dramatic. They should have called it what it was. 2 monsters fighting over ownership of their shared victim, and the legal system's complete failure to protect her from either one. And now, we want to hear from you in the comments. Had you heard of the Stanford White murder before this video? How do you think modern Me Too movements would have changed Evelyn's story if it happened today? We look forward to your thoughts below.